Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and welcome to another recap video. So this is for the fourth round of the championship, which was held on Los Santos Grand Prix in compact cars. Now we had in GT1 the Rhapsody, in GT2 the Blista, and in GT3 we had the Prairie. You may have noticed that in the races, obviously the highlights videos for these I'll leave down in the description if you want to watch my perspective of these. But for the Prairie, none of the GT3 cars in the Prairie had the spoiler on the back. And that was basically just to make sure that the Prairie was significantly off the pace of the Blista. Otherwise it was quite close, and we prefer not to have that in between classes. So yeah, Los Santos Grand Prix, it's always one of those races that throws up interesting aspects. You know, historically it's always been the one where accidents occur, incidents occur. It's quite a difficult one to navigate for a full hour and a half without any mistakes, I would say. And compacts, we used compacts for it last season as well, but that was actually in the dry. We had a 60% chance of rain for each of the three races, and it turned out that we had rain for all three of the races on all of the platforms. So we had a rain race on Los Santos Grand Prix in compacts on Xbox One, PS4 and PC. Now there was, I think there's only sort of a 20% chance of that happening across all three platforms, but obviously 60% is the individual chance on each race. And again, I guess as always, we'll start with the Xbox One Championship, and with GT1 we had Nismo actually take the win there. Again, he was acting as a reserve driver like he did in round 3, and once again, as I've been mentioning with this Xbox One Championship, those 15 points for the wins are kind of being taken away by reserve drivers, so it will be interesting to see how the championship goes on. We've also had a change there in terms of the drivers with Nicholas Arrow 13. He was a GT3 driver, but it was kind of clear that he was much better than a GT3 driver essentially. And with Sean Calavera not being able to participate for the rest of the championship in GT1, Nicholas Arrow 13 moved up to the GT1 side so he can do some races, and he did put in a really good showing there, coming in second place in that race. You know, did really well. And we had Blue Eyed Malice come in third place as well, which was a really good result for him after having quite a few bad races. He's kind of got in a good result there, and he's certainly an old hat at putting in good performances like that. So yeah, I had a terrible race, I would say. You know, my introduction to LSGP. I've never been a fan of LSGP, I would say. It's never been one that I've been very good at. I like the track to race on in normal circumstances. It's just that I'm never really that quick around there. And yeah, I made far too many mistakes, as you probably saw in the highlights video, ending up coming in it was 6th place in the end. So hopefully that becomes one of my dropped rounds. Obviously you drop your 3 worst scores throughout the course of the season. In terms of GT2 on the Xbox One, we had Blodia X5 take another victory. Blodia got the win in round 1, and he got a 3rd place in round 2, and then didn't do anything in round 3. He wasn't actually at the race for round 3, so he came back in round 4 with a win, which is good to see. And the second place guy, King Blaze, is also new to the championship. He was new in round 3, and he's putting in some good performances straight away. King Blaze 4 with that second place in round 4 for the compacts. It will be an interesting championship as the season goes on in GT2 for the Xbox One, I would say. Hitman came home in 3rd there as well, but ultimately it's going to be quite close in that championship, just like it seems to be in the GT3 championship as well. So for round 3 we had Ducati Doctor actually take the win. He was my teammate on the Run Racing team, so good points for Run Racing there as well, I would say. But yeah, Ducati Doctor managed to get his first win of the season in GT3. In second place was Brandon 11M, who's one of the new ones to the championship again, and Squillum 93, who got the win in round 3, came home in 3rd place in round 4. So again, it's quite close between the top end of the GT3 championship, and we're coming up to being halfway through the season at this point, and it's very close even at this stage between the championships. So it's only going to get more interesting and more tight and more tense as the season goes on. Now for the PC race, this was a bit of a nightmare, as I'm sure you saw on the highlights video. We had so many disconnections, and I think from my experience, PC sometimes is worse for this, insofar as the instability of keeping people in sessions and in lobbies and things like that. It's very quick to actually get into lobbies and get things started up, but sometimes it can suffer from more disconnections than either of the consoles, although I would say that probably PS4 is the most reliable for that sort of thing, but I'll talk about that in a second. So yeah, we had a lot of disconnections during that PC race, and I think in the end only 14 drivers made it to the end. We only had 2 in the GT1 field make it to the end, which was a crazy to see. I don't think we've ever had that many disconnections in a single class before, where only first and second actually made it to the end of the race, and third place overall was taken up by a GT2 driver. It was good that we did have one class, the GT2 field were pretty much consistently in there throughout, all of the drivers there. But yeah, it was a bit of a shame that we had so many issues, and certainly in the GT3 field I'll talk about in a second, there was a very disappointing disconnection there. But overall, I would say that the results at the end of the race, despite the disconnections, weren't all that different from what they would have been anyway, because the disconnections happened when people had already settled into their positions, and certainly the top 2 in GT1, obviously there was only 2 of them left at the end, but they were actually first and second all the way through the race, and Fab Iceman actually got his first win of the season, making his comeback to the championship. He was the GT1 champion for season 2, and yeah, he came back into the championship in round 3 and got a 3rd place, but now he's got his first win of the season, and he had a really good battle with Super Stepper, who came in 2nd place, and those were the only 2 to finish. But those were pretty much leading in 2nd place all the way through the race, so it was really interesting to see them sort of switch positions as we went through it and have a good old battle. In 3rd place was Avivo. He was probably the main beneficiary of the disconnections. He was in 5th place, and O'Dan was in 4th. Cloud McShort was in 3rd at the time of the disconnections. Ultimately, Cloud McShort ended up getting the points for 5th. O'Dan still got the points for 4th, the way that the disconnections worked, and Avivo got the points for 3rd, but it could have been possible that Avivo would have made up those positions anyway. So yeah, the disconnections I don't think made all too much of a difference to the points as they would have been in GT1, but it is a shame that we were kind of robbed of any more battles there. And basically, because of all of the disconnections on PC for this round, they do seem to happen more when we have rain for the races. So none of the PC races in the future are going to have rain. So basically, we're making compromises on the Xbox One in terms of the time of day. The Xbox One does suffer from frame rate drops when the time of day is set to current, and it can be different for everybody. So we set the time of day to noon on the Xbox One just to compromise there and make sure that we have those as fair race as possible. And now we're also compromising on the PC side as well to make sure that that instability that seems to be brought in with people having sort of all different graphical settings and all that kind of stuff that is inherent with PC doesn't cause so many disconnections because of the rain, and it does appear to be the rain that causes that more often than not. So yeah, at the moment it is only the PS4 side that's doing the championship as it was originally intended, but you've got to make these decisions and make these compromises throughout the course of a season. We have already had 2 rain races on PC anyway. That's enough, and I'm more than happy to have the rest of the races in the dry and get a much more fairer championship. So in the GT2 pack for the PC race, that was pretty much unaffected by all of the disconnections. I think Blade Cruiser disconnected early on, but he tends to disconnect, and because of that he sort of left the championship after this round anyway, because he's had too many disconnections and his connection just isn't up to the task. But yeah, the GT1 field, the GT2 field, sorry, didn't really have too many issues with that, and pretty much everybody apart from Blade Cruiser, who did disconnect earlier, made it to the finish. And Machiski was the best of those. He got the win there. It's very similar to Blodia on the Xbox side. Machiski won the very first race in round 1 and hasn't had that great results until we came to round 4, where he won again. In second place was the Bad Loser, third place was Chew, so 2 very good showings from them. And I think the Bad Loser has had 2 poor scores in round 1 and round 2, but he's starting to get some better scores in round 3 and round 4. He came second in both of those races, so there's still a long way to go, and with the worst 3 scores being dropped, we're never going to know quite how the championship's going to work out until we get to the very end, when those are sort of all dropped and worked out at the end. So yeah, it could be a very interesting close battle in GT2 on the PC side as well. And then in GT3, the big shame for this one, I guess you could say, was John, who disconnected from the lead. He had a huge lead. Obviously, I didn't have the turbo on, and I basically there was no way that I was going to be able to keep up with him without having that turbo. He was led from start to finish. Really, he almost lapped me, and I was obviously in second place in GT3. He almost came around to lap me. I don't know whether he would have managed to make it in the few laps that were left, but ultimately he was miles in the lead, and he unfortunately disconnected with a couple of laps to go. And this is something that you feel so bad about it, and it's such a shame, but it's happened all the way through the season, all the way through this season, all the way through seasons 2 and season 1 as well. We've had some pretty horrible disconnects. Smithy in the Comet on the sports race in season 2, that was probably one of the worst ones, that he was such a huge lead and he ended up disconnecting from that. Some of them are heartbreaking, some of them are very harsh. They have to just be basically seen as mechanical failures, what mechanical failures would be in real life to regular racing. That's how we treat them, and there's just nothing we can really do about it. And throughout the course of the PC race, people were saying we should restart the race. People were saying that you should give the points as to the people who they were, and coming up with all these different aspects of how you can do it. But none of it really is a fair way to do it. The fairest way to do it is to just treat it as a did not finish and give the points based on how far you got through the race. That's the only fair way to do it, essentially. Just because you have to have a set of rules that stick to everything regardless of the situation. And if you start saying, okay, we'll give the points to John for winning the race anyway, even though he disconnected, then other people who were quite far ahead in other parts of a different race might say, well, why didn't I get the points for that? And you go into all of these grey areas that you don't really want to do. So you have to make sure that it's black and white, and stick by the rules that have been set out through the championship. And that's why we didn't restart, and we went for the majority of people were left in that session, and we just continued on with it. It's a shame, but that's why we have 3 dropped rounds this season. We have 1 extra round where your points can be dropped, compared to what we had for season 2, just to guard against this disconnection factor, and hopefully by the end of it, the championship won't be decided on how many disconnections that you've had, unlike what it was in the GT3 class on PS4 for season 2. So yeah, that's the PC side. We'll move on to the PS4 side now. And Smithy got another win on GT1 there. He got a huge victory. In fact, he was miles ahead of second place Nismo. Nismo actually came into the championship. We've had quite a few people come into the championship for the GT1 class. In fact, I think there's only, out of the 9 people who started the championship in GT1, there's only 5 of them left of the originals. But we do have some new faces with Neymar, Nismo, Rogers, and El Mister. El Mister was in for round 2, obviously, but he's still a new face who wasn't one of the originals. But yeah, I guess things crop up, and people, this is an endurance championship, not only in the fact that these are endurance races, but also in the fact that, it's an endurance to just get through the championship. And that's what I'm finding trying to get through all three of these championships on all three platforms. It really does take it out of you. And especially I've been not really practicing for the races. So in that respect, I'm not getting too burnt out of racing on the game. But even just doing one championship, it is quite an endurance and it is quite a lot to manage. So, I would I give props to anybody who manages to make it to all 10 of the races, and even if they disconnect or can't make it into the races, the fact that they haven't quit out early or had to leave the championship or something like that, I give huge credit to that, because I know how difficult it is to even just make it to all of the races in the first place. So yeah, we do still have a full complement of GT1 drivers though, even with many reserves in there. But yeah, back to the race, and Smithy did a great job to get a huge victory there. Basically, he added on to his victory from round 3 as well, and that put him to the top of the championship table. Now he's seems to have always had the best lap, but had issues with getting his race pace and not making mistakes during a race. So it's good to see that he's managed to get that back again. Second place was Nismo, who you always expect to be quick, but he was quite far behind Smithy at the end. And Neymar was in third place, just behind Nismo. Those two were very close throughout. So interesting GT1 battle. Picano was in fourth place for that, and I think the names that we have in here and the way that the points are going, it's still going to be very close even to the end. And some of the drivers who've just come into the championship, who maybe don't have as many points now because they didn't get any points in the first couple of rounds, they may make an impression later on in the season, because as I said, these dropped rounds will factor in. So yeah, it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Now, when it comes to GT2, that was a very, very close battle between myself and Tom Tad that you might have seen. And in fact, the top 4 as well of Imarogko and Shred Ninja. Shred Ninja ended up coming in third place. Imarogko was in fourth. But it was very close between all 4 of us right until the very end. So it was quite an entertaining race. Tom Tad ultimately got the win. And I think, as I mentioned last week in the previous video, he's got so many points now that he's probably going to win the GT2 championship already, even at this stage. I think he just has that pace advantage, to be honest, and it's always the rest of us looking for him to make a mistake or have an issue or something, just because he does have that half a second a lap pace advantage, which is probably the difference between maybe as I mentioned during that video, a GT1 driver and a GT2 driver, I would say. But that's how the balancing of it goes, and we had to just do the best that we could do with the balancing. Tom Tad was, I think, slower. He was either slower or I was quicker by the end, and it was a shame that I got taken out by that GT1 driver near the end of that race, because I think it would have been a really interesting battle between myself and him, very close, and I was actually catching him near the end of the race as well. Whether he had damage or I was just more settled into the car by that point, again, coming into these races with no practice whatsoever, it's not doing me any favours, but it's just so hard to find the time to do that, especially across 3 championships and making all of these videos. So, again, with this, I would very much like to get a win on Xbox One and PS4. I'm not looking to win championships or anything like that. It would be nice if Ron, my team, could actually win the PS4 championship. I would be very happy about that, but yeah, I would just like a win, just a one-off win to try and just to bring back that feeling, if you like, because I've been so close quite a few times now. 2 second places in round 3 and round 4 from me, but yeah, it would be nice to get a win. But ultimately, Tom Tad was the winner for this round. Now, when it comes to GT3, we've got a very similar story to what we have in GT2, where 40, who got the win for the 4th round, he's really killing it with the points, and very similar to Tom Tad, never been out of the top 2, second places, first places, and that's pretty much what you need to be winning a championship. If you're not on the top step, you need to be getting seconds and thirds to build up those points. And 40 is in a very similar position to Tom Tad, where they've just got so many points so early on that it's going to be very difficult to see anybody else overhauling them throughout the rest of the championship. We did have quite a few reserve drivers for the GT3 side on PS4 for this round, and it was actually AJ Axo 10 who came home in second place for that race. He will feature as a permanent driver later on in the season. Obviously, I'm recording this after a few things have happened, dropouts and things like that. But obviously, I'll fill you all in with that as the season goes on with these videos. But yeah, it was a good showing from him to finish in second place in a very competitive GT3 field as a reserve driver. And then Futuro managed to get a third place. So yeah, the GT3 field on PS4 seems very, very close from second place down to even ninth place. Really, it's just that 40 is miles ahead of the head of that, I would say, and looks to be very difficult to overhaul at this point. So that's pretty much it. That's the wrap up for this fourth round on Los Santos Grand Prix. I hope you guys are continuing to enjoy the series and continuing to enjoy all of the races. I'm finding it very, very difficult to make all of these videos, do all the races. As I'm recording this, we are currently halfway through the season and we've got a bit of a break. But yeah, now I kind of realise why it was so long between seasons, because these are not only racing and making all the videos, but organising the championship and dealing with all the reserve drivers and the races themselves, getting it all organised. It's taking it out of me a little bit. So yeah, nearly halfway through, and it will be nice to be on the second half of the championship and start to realise that we've got less races to go than we have got to do. It is quite a tiring, and as I said, it's an endurance championship, not only in the races themselves but the championship itself. So yeah, I hope you guys are still enjoying. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'd really appreciate that, and thank you all for watching. Thank you all so much for the support. I really, really do appreciate it. I hope you're all enjoying the racing, and yeah, we'll be back very soon with even more videos. So thanks a lot for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.